Hey guys, what is up? And this is Shadowlands back. I just had a kind of strange commentary I wanted to do. It's really not to do with combat arms, it's just kind of something that made me think. So I recently got finished reading another book called Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut. And I know you guys probably don't read a whole lot of books, at least not as many as I do, but this really got me thinking. In the book, there's these kind of three different contexts, and the author, Kurt Vonnegut, is well known for being a postmodernist writer, which is questionable in itself because we're still kind of in a modern age. We're not really into that postmodern age yet. And there's the concept of having one line of time that can't be changed versus like multiple realities or like parallel universes and stuff. All that cool sci-fi stuff that goes on that I'm sure some of you are into. And basically the way they put it, he puts it with these like creatures. He has these creatures called Tralfamadorians. I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it in Slaughterhouse 5. And they're basically like these all-knowing godlike beings. I'm not going to go into their physical description because you guys wouldn't be able to take me seriously if I did. But let's just say they'd be very adept at plunging toilets. I crap you not. But anyway, so basically they have the all-knowing ability to see all of time, and they describe it as being able to look at like the Rocky Mountains, where it's just one thing that's there, and any given moment is just one given moment that it's set in stone and will never change. Like they know, for example, that the end of the universe will come when a Tralfamadorian is playing around with some rocket fuel, presses the button at the wrong time, and blows up the universe. And basically, he goes on to say that, well, that's a moment in time that is fixed and will never change, and we can't do anything about it. And that's why the author, Vonnegut, challenges the idea of free will. Free will is often really just kind of looked at as something that only humans would have, both from Vonnegut's point of view, and even if you just look at like humans compared to animals. We have free will that some people wouldn't think about not having. And just think about not having otherwise. My brother coughing in the background, if you can hear that. You probably can't, but so then they challenge the idea of one timeline versus multiple realities. The one timeline challenges the idea that you wouldn't have free will, and that no matter what you do, even if you saw the future, you wouldn't be able to change it. And that's how, quote, the Tralfamadorians see it, and that there is no question of why. Because if you ask something why, you're asking for a reason, and then you're asking for a reason as to why that moment is the way it is, why that piece of time happens the way it happens. And it seems silly to an all-knowing being because it just happens. There's no reason, or well, even if there is a reason, there doesn't have to be one. And it would be pointless even if you knew the reason, because then there would just be there's no reason. It's a roundabout point, a question which is why it doesn't matter. It's a paradox. But then there's the human concept of having multiple realities and having free will. Humans often ask the question why, and if you're asking a question why, there can be one, two, or hundreds of reasons why. And whenever you ask the question why, you're looking for a reason. You're looking for an answer to the question, which is going to come into the form of many different reasons. And even if there may be hundreds of reasons, if even one of those reasons were to change, then the course of time would be altered. If you think about it, I can't really give a good solid example without you guys having read the book, and I don't think most of you have read it. It's an older book. It's an anti-war novel, which is kind of strange, but anyway, it's an anti-World War II novel. But if any of those reasons for the question of why were to change, time would be altered, and you would have different perceptions of reality. You would have different, I don't know, time would change. It would go in a different point. Like, why did our parents meet? Let's say they met at some science fair. They met because they were going to participate in this section at this time on this day, and that's the reason. Well, if the reason was they were for different portions of the science fair, then they would never have met, and you would never be born. If they were going to different portions, not even necessarily were they going to the science fair. They may have been going to different portions, and why did they go to that reason? Why did they go to that portion? Because they like it. So if any one of those reasons were to change, and that's actually a good example for you guys, then there goes time. That alters the path that time would take. And that's the whole point of that. That's the idea of multiple realities. Like, think of a timeline where you were never born versus one where there's just one timeline that's unchanging. And if you think about it, in theory, for any one universe, there is only one timeline. You're only going to have one timeline per existence. And that's That's just how it would be, and nothing within that timeline will ever change because each moment is fixed. Even death, if you think about it, and this is kind of a strange way to put it, life consists of infinitely many moments, no matter how small you take it down to. It consists of a certain limit of minutes, hours, days, but it consists of an infinite number of moments. But death is only one moment. You're dead for an instant, and then you're somewhere else or gone or whatever. You're not dead. You're only dead for one moment in time, an infinitely small moment that no one can ever measure. And that's why some people, and in Vonnegut says that they don't fear death. That's one of the reasons. That's what the book is. That's part of what the book is about. And the whole point in the book is that he's supposed to be. The Tralfamadorians tell that to the main character who just survived a massacre in World War II, and it's supposed to comfort him that there was nothing he could have done to change it. Specifically, this massacre is the firebombing of Dresden. So, but then there's something else I wanted to point out. If you look at the timeline of an individual's life, it's very, very different from the timeline of society as a whole, as civilization and humanity as a whole. And I'm going to pop in a picture sometime here. It's probably already up. But basically, if you look at it, when you're born, you have maximum and minimum potential, and that range from maximum to minimum is huge, and pretty much every person's potential looks about the same as long as there's no like either physical deformity that would stop you from doing something. But the point is you have an infinite potential because there's an infinite number of moments you can create. But as you go through life, that kind of narrows down, and it becomes a very, very small thing. Near the end of your life, you're very limited with what you can do because of the choices you've already made in your life. But that limited spectrum can be anywhere along the line from maximum potential and minimum potential, as you guys can see on the left picture. But on the right picture, if you look at society's timeline, if you look where you are currently, let's say you have that much potential on the left side of the right picture, that's what your current potential is, no matter how big or small that may be. Whether that's starting at your birth or starting 5 minutes from your death. It goes up exponentially. As you look to the right, let's say that moment at the far right side of the right picture is 5 minutes later, 5 years later, 5 decades later. Whether you're even alive or not doesn't even matter. But the possible futures based on the decisions you make, if you look at my little notes on the right hand side there, my handwriting is horrible. The possible futures and possible differences you can have past there, it's made by minor decisions, even small ones. Whether it's to take your left hand out of your pocket and put it back in, every little thing matters. Every single frame of your life matters. Everything makes a difference, and that's why they say even this one person can make a difference in the entirety and all of reality. Although events may not necessarily be linked, two events may not be linked, all of the universe is linked together in one giant web, and if even one of those strands is broken, the web may not be able to stay where it was, and the time will be altered compared to that. So if you were to look at two universes, up until a certain point they may be exactly the same, but then because of one minor decision, whether it was someone decided to sneeze or something, that timeline can be altered, and it will be altered forever. They will be two different timelines completely. So basically, if you look at my notes at the bottom, I'll read them out. The one under the individual's timeline on the left says that potential is relatively the same for all at birth, but at death, the possibilities have diminished. It is, however, more difficult to work your way up the potential ladder than down. And the reason I say that is to reach your maximum potential, it works the same way in physics. To go from slow to fast takes far less energy to go from fast to faster. Acceleration, that's the whole force equals mass times acceleration thing. I know it's into physics and stuff, but to reach your minimum potential requires so little energy, you just have to fail everything, basically. But your maximum potential is incredibly difficult to reach, and it requires lots of time and effort, which is what I put into Combat Arms, to be completely honest. I put in lots of work into it, my YouTube channel and everything, because I want to reach my maximum potential, and it's just very difficult for a small-time YouTuber to get that. But on the right hand, on the other hand, under the society's timeline, it says society is made up of infinitely many individuals. And while that may seem kind of silly because there's only like 7 billion people on the planet, we can actually put a number on it theoretically. Throughout time, and if we were to assume that history would go on into forever, there are many individuals, and that would change. But it says society is made up of infinitely many individuals, each with equally infinite possibilities. Those possibilities are the individual moments that you do things in. And that's the way society's timeline is and that's why society's timeline is exponential while the individual's timeline is logarithmic. If you look, it technically would diminish into a certain number, a small number, approaching zero but never actually reaching zero in the individual's timeline for your number of possibilities and chances to make decisions. Whereas the one on the right, you start with one decision, is as early as it is to a certain point in time that you want it to be, and every moment past that, it goes up exponentially. I mean, if you think about it, it will continue growing up. If you look at a graph of an exponential graph, that's how powerful that is. And that's just, I mean, I know this commentary's been long, guys, but I feel like it's at least been kind of interesting to listen to. If you want to know where I actually got the whole concept for this commentary, if you guys ever go and read a hardback version of Slaughterhouse 5, I'm pretty sure all the hardback copies are the same. Look on page 85, from the midpoint down, there's a paragraph that starts, and that's where I got this whole idea from, page 85. It's when one of the Tralfamadorian aliens says, "Why do humans ask the question why? Only humans are the best explainers. It would take another human to explain that to you." And that's why they say why. The question why is a very human thing to ask. But that about wraps up what I have to say for today, guys. Thank you for paying attention this long if you're still watching this video. And yeah, if you guys have interesting comments or stuff, please post them below and I'll be sure to read them. Thank you. Shadowlance out.